foot. He shouldn't be able to leather the thing that hard, that kind of angle, that kind of finish. He's gifted. This is something where sort of our colleagues who cover Chelsea regularly have been raving. I've seen him play a couple of times this season. I've seen a few of the highlights, but that was really the performance. That was the sort of coming out moment of here he is. We had the kind of whole build up for this game about the sort of the battle of the 18-year-old wonder kids with sort of Lamine Yamal. He was completely anonymous. I wouldn't necessarily single him out for that. Barcelona were dreadful. Obviously, it doesn't help playing with 10 men for so much of the match. But Esteval, he's a fantastic player. Kind of going to that two-footed element. There are slight elements of Cazorla about it almost. He's probably the most two-footed player I've ever seen. I wouldn't say he's quite there yet. But we talk about the comparisons that are being made for Esteval already. He doesn't like being compared to Lionel Messi. He's probably going to have to get used to it over time. I think the more accurate one for me at the moment is Eden Hazard. He just reminds me of him. It's that speed, it's that acceleration, the close control. He's deceptively strong for someone of his size. It's very hard to just go and shunt him off the ball, but he's an absolute joy to watch, isn't he? When he gets it, you just have that instinct to creep a little bit further forward in your seat. You know he's going to do something special, and that performance tonight, even aside from the goal, there's just something beautiful about watching a guy get the ball and want to beat his man, and not just beat him, absolutely eviscerate him. He's so exciting to watch. I think we'll probably talk more broadly about where Chelsea stand at the moment in a moment this season, but for now, on the evening, that was all about him. I thought he was fabulous. I just want to watch him play again, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, won't be long. Got plenty of games live on Sky Sports. I'm sure you'll be able to see Esteval in action, Riyadh. Paul, on him, I just wonder how you feel about the way that Chelsea have handled him. Because you've got a precocious teenager. He's just 18 years of age. And right now, he's really starting to find form and delivering with those goals. He scored twice for Brazil over the international break as well. So just, maybe a word to how they've managed the situation with Esteval.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've managed it well. At the same time, you could flip it around and say, we're not even into December yet, and this 18-year-old is making his mark on both the Premier League and the Champions League. It's not taken him a very long time to adapt or to stake his claim for a place in the first team. But I think you're right to say that Chelsea have deliberately thought about this. They've kept him out of the firing line to a certain extent, and it's consistent with Chelsea's general practice. And I think what you saw today is perhaps an example of what the Chelsea plan is and where Chelsea want to go. This was a team where both the wide men were permed. The customary right winger Neto went number 9 for the first half, switched around the midfield, different centre half combinations, and everybody looked like they knew what they were doing. Everybody looked comfortable in their role, comfortable in the formation, comfortable in the style. Another thing I really enjoyed watching about Esteval tonight was just how committed he was to the press. He was harrying defenders consistently and never let up. And those are the characteristics of this team. And you get the sense that actually what looked like something that is too big, maybe doesn't have too many key figures that you can hang a team on, suddenly looks like a project, a squad-based project, and one that is built to compete in as many competitions as can be thrown at them.
It's 5 wins and 6 in all competitions, Riyadh, for Chelsea, and they've won their last 3 without conceding a goal and scoring 8. We've got Esteval on fire. I mean, this really sets things up for the game coming up on Sunday, which is, of course, the visit of Arsenal in the Premier League, second against first. I mean, this was a statement win, and it sets up that game beautifully, doesn't it?
Chelsea are in a great moment. I think I've had a lot of reservations. I'm sure many of us have. over the current regime. The sort of turnover and churn of players is enormous. They operate a huge squad, and I've still got a lot of reservations about how functional that kind of approach is. And if we were just to apply a slight note of caution at the moment, we have seen Chelsea be quite inconsistent this season. We know it's a young squad, and that can be characteristic of it. You know, I don't think anyone would have necessarily been pleased with a draw in Karabag, but then you see a performance like tonight, and you see how high the ceiling is. They're second in the league. We're talking about a division at the moment where Liverpool are
reflecting
in this
the team's growing chemistry
crazy
and
funk.
to
Man
secure another
City,
vital league victory.
every sort of couple of steps forward they take at the moment, there seems to be one coming back the other way. So, you know, there is a sort of open landscape for them to be able to make a real imprint on it. I don't know whether this is going to carry on all the way through to May. Arsenal have clearly been the standard setters. I think this game against them at the weekend, that's going to be a huge barometer really of where both teams are. But at the moment, if you're Enzo Maresca, even if you're Chelsea as a whole, for all the kind of criticisms I've just inferred there, you've got to be very satisfied with the way this is looking, and you know, they're moving quite comfortably through the Champions League. They're the fifth now in the standings. They're probably going to make it to the last 16 automatically, I should have imagined at this stage. So, you know, at the moment it's flying, and as we've just spent 5 minutes talking about Esteval, they've got arguably the most exciting young player in the league at the moment. So no, it's really encouraging. But let's see what happens at the weekend, and then we can probably draw a more accurate picture of where they stand domestically.
4 p.m. our coverage starts on Sky Sports Premier League for Chelsea against Arsenal. You mentioned Manchester City, Riath. I'll send this one your way, Paul. That page of the Star, beaten Pep a stinker man, obviously pun on tinker man, because he made 10 changes for the visit of Bayer Leverkusen. A misjudgment, Paul, as they lost by 2-0.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that Pep Guardiola has overthought a European fixture, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting, isn't it? You know, Pep's the guy who made it. I think the phrase in fantasy football is Pep roulette. You can never be sure which players might turn up for his team, and he kind of made that squad game the benchmark in the Premier League, and it was successful. But I think what's happening right now is that you've got a number of a substantial amount of recruitment over the past 2 windows. Not all of these players have bedded in, and tonight you saw the players who really aren't getting many minutes in the team that we've barely seen. Omar Marmoush this season, haven't seen much of Savinho, and they both started. And so, you know, it was a bit of an ask to expect them all to click. I think there was a slight tweak in formation as well, away from the 2 number 10s that they've been playing in the Premier League. So, of course, you know, no Haaland in your starting team changes things a lot. So there were a lot of hurdles to clear in order to click, and they just didn't get there. They were insipid. You know, they were insipid in both halves, and which was particularly surprising when, you know, after they went down, they didn't really show much appetite really, but certainly not much in the way of an idea of how to get back into the game. And that was after, you know, a series of more regular players was introduced for substitutions. So it was a bit of a disappointing performance, disappointing result, and a bit of a reminder that you can't really send the reserves out in the Champions League and expect to win. On the other hand, City, you know, in this league format, you can afford to throw the odd fixture. City have Madrid away. I'm pretty sure they'll play the first team for that. Then Bodo Glimt away and Galatasaray at home in their remaining fixtures. So they're still well placed to qualify in the top 8. But yeah, you know, suddenly there'll be more question marks on whether City have turned the corner, how legitimate their title challenge will be, particularly on the back of defeat at the weekend.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Paul. I think, you know, with the extra couple of games in the league phase, you know, you can probably judge by this point where you are and work out whether you can field a slightly weakened team or, you know, a much changed team, you know, and maybe if you receive a defeat, well, that's not the end of the world. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. But ultimately, Riyadh, briefly, it's been a difficult week, hasn't it, for Pep Guardiola, given what happened at the end of the game at St James's Park. I mean, you know, this won't have improved his mood, will it?
I just look, it's a relief for cameramen everywhere that he's, he's sort of calmed down a little bit. But I think almost going to what sort of Paul was discussing there about the sort of, the changes. We're still talking about a starting 11 that cost over 350 million quid. You're still talking about a bench that cost 400 million. I think against what Paul was saying, it's about that lack of cohesion. It's the unfamiliarity, the chopping and the changing. But they were really poor tonight. I'd go as far as saying I didn't think there was much fight from them. I thought from what I could hear on the TV, it sounded like the atmosphere was pretty flat there. I don't know whether they expected to turn up and be able to win, but I think it just goes to prove with City in the last season and a bit now, I just find it very hard to trust them, and that's not something we're historically used to saying with a Guardiola side, and even with a much changed side like tonight, you would still be able to back them to turn up and to be able to produce a performance, to be able to find quality. Watching them tonight, they almost lacked imagination going forward. And you look at the quality of players that they still had on the pitch, and that's on the one hand it's surprising. On the other hand, it is becoming a little bit more familiar. They're in another one of those little spots, and they're going to have to turn that around. Real Madrid, I think's looking like a huge game. So, we still instinctively have this feeling with City. Well, they're only ever one passage of play away from everything just clicking back into place, but we're not seeing that, and they've had some fairly abject moments this season as well as what we saw last season. So no, it's a really strange one, that.
Yeah, a couple of difficult results there for Pep Guardiola. Okay, we'll take a break for a couple of minutes. When we come back, we'll take a look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in The Guardian, why Cristiano Ronaldo will be free to play in the World Cup group stage despite that red card against the Republic of Ireland.
Trying to go. Josh. Dale, voy.